The wind slashed through the valleys of Wallachia like an invisible blade, carrying the putrid stench of death. Along the deserted roads, travelers covered their faces to avoid retching from the odor of impaled corpses rotting under the sun. Men, women, and children remained there, skewered on wooden stakes, while crows feasted on their remains. It was a clear warning. Anyone who dared to defy Vlad Dracula would share this fate. What drives a man to such brutality? Was it the fury of someone betrayed time and again, or the cold desire to instill terror? To his enemies, he was a monster, a bloodthirsty despot who ruled through pain. To a few, he was an implacable avenger, a shield against the Turkish advance. But to all, without exception, he was something far worse. Someone who understood that fear was the most powerful weapon of all. 15th century Wallachia was a land condemned to conflict. Squeezed between the brutal expansionism of the Ottoman Empire and the voracious ambitions of the Hungarian kingdoms, it had become a stage for betrayals, battles, and sudden shifts of power. Surviving in this environment required more than strength. It demanded cunning, cruelty, and an unrelenting willingness to eradicate enemies before they could raise their blades. It was in this hell that Vlad III was born. He was not just a ruler, he was a name that carried the promise of vengeance and absolute dominion. His lineage was part of the Order of the Dragon, a sworn brotherhood dedicated to stopping the Ottoman advance. But Vlad would not be content with merely containing the enemy. He wanted to subjugate, humiliate, and turn anyone who dared challenge him into an unforgettable example. Those who crossed his path learned the hard way. There was no mercy in his reign. The horror he sowed was not random. Every act of brutality was calculated. Every drop of blood spilled was part of a greater plan. Vlad did not rule merely with iron and fire. He ruled with fear and blood. The year was 1431. Wallachia was a land of shadows, where betrayal and war shaped men more than their own blood. It was in this cruel world that Vlad III was born, amid the growing tension between the Christians of Europe and the relentless advance of the Ottoman Empire. His father, Vlad II, was a fearless warrior and a member of the Order of the Dragon, an elite fraternity dedicated to defending Christianity against the Muslims. To the Wallachians, this was an honor. To the Ottomans, it made him a sworn enemy. Vlad III grew up under the weight of this legacy. His father was not a gentle man, and the court of Targovist was no safe place for a child. He learned early that alliances were fragile and that power came from strength and fear. He watched as nobles conspired in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to stab each other, and, if necessary, the prince himself. But the greatest lesson came too soon. In 1442, when Vlad was only 11 years old, his world crumbled. Sultan Mehmed II demanded that Vlad II prove his loyalty by handing over his two sons as hostages to the Ottoman Empire. The choice was simple: surrender the boys or lose the throne. Thus, Vlad III and his younger brother, Radu, were taken as prisoners to a foreign land. And there, surrounded by enemies, Vlad learned that only hatred could keep him alive. The Ottoman Empire was vast, disciplined, and ruthless. In Adrianople, where Vlad and Radu were imprisoned, brutality was constant. The purpose was clear: to break them, to turn them into servants of the Sultan. Radu, the younger brother, yielded quickly. Submissive and pliable, he found acceptance among the Turks, converted to Islam, and gained the favor of Mehmed II, the young Ottoman heir. Vlad, on the other hand, burned with fury. He would not kneel. His heart was made of iron, and his mind was a forge of vengeance. He studied the Turks, learned their methods, their weaknesses. He watched executions and interrogations, understanding how fear could subjugate entire armies. It was there that Vlad first saw terror being used as a weapon. He learned the psychological warfare tactics of the Ottomans, the way they spread rumors, incited paranoia among their enemies, and crushed any resistance with brutal reprisals. But he also grasped something even more important. Cruelty had to be meticulous, almost artistic. Years passed. Vlad became a warrior, a strategist, but above all, a survivor. And when he was finally freed, a new man emerged from that captivity. He was no longer just a prince of Wallachia. He was a predator, waiting for the right moment to take revenge on all who had betrayed him. Vlad's return to Wallachia was not a triumph but a war fought in the shadows. In 1447, his father and older brother were betrayed by the Wallachian nobles and murdered. The throne was taken by a usurper, Vladislav II, a puppet of Hungary. The blood of betrayal still stained the halls of Targovist when Vlad learned of the massacre. And in that instant, a single thought took root in his mind: revenge. The opportunity came the following year. The Ottomans, recognizing his usefulness as a loyal ruler, helped him take the throne. But his reign was short-lived. Without internal support and facing resistance from Hungarian forces, Vlad was expelled before he could even consolidate his power. Without a kingdom and without allies, he wandered through Eastern Europe as a prince without a crown, a warrior without an army. Then he found John Hunyadi, the fiercest enemy of the Ottomans. The Hungarian leader, who had once supported Vladislav II, saw in Vlad III a potential ally. But Vlad knew that strength alone was not enough. He needed something more, a symbol, a reason that would make the nobles fear and respect him. He did not merely want to reclaim his throne. He wanted to transform Wallachia into an unbreakable domain where no one would dare challenge him. And for that, he was willing to paint his land with the blood of traitors. In 1456, the moment arrived. With Hungarian support, Vlad marched on Wallachia and killed Vladislav II in combat. The exiled prince had returned, and he was hungry for justice and terror. His first act was to seal the fate of the nobles who had murdered his family. He invited them to a grand banquet in the castle of Targovist. They sat at the table, laughed, drank, trusting in the hospitality of the new ruler. And then, without warning, Vlad gave the order. Armed guards blocked the doors. The nobles were captured, dragged outside, and impaled before the fortress. The bodies formed a macabre forest, swaying in the wind as the living screamed in agony. But his cruelty did not stop there. To him, ruling meant eradicating all weakness. Criminals, beggars, and adulterers were punished without mercy. It is said that he once gathered all the beggars in the city, promising a great feast. When they were full, he locked the doors and set the hall on fire. "Now there are no more poor in my kingdom," he is said to have declared, watching the flames consume the wretches. Soon, the name Vlad Dracula inspired as much fear as the Ottomans themselves. But for him, that was not enough. If the Turks believed they could turn Wallachia into a province of the empire, he would teach them the true meaning of terror. He was not just a warrior, nor just a king. He was the scourge of the Ottomans, the master of terror, a name that echoes through the centuries with fear and admiration. Vlad the Impaler, hero or monster, you decide. Did you enjoy this epic story? Then don't forget to hit the like button to support the channel and help more people discover these legendary tales. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next battles, conquests, and secrets of history. As sagas of history, legends never die, they are told.